Do you ever feel like you just don't belong, no matter how many people you're surrounded by? You find yourself at gatherings talking to others, but something's off. It's like there's a wall between you and everyone else. You might have a lot of acquaintances, but deep connections always seem to elude you. Ever wondered why? People with limited friendships often experience this sense of disconnect, even when they're surrounded by others. But there's something deeper happening, and it's rooted in the psychology of who they are. If you're someone who struggles to form lasting friendships, or if you've noticed a pattern of isolation, you might share some of these rare psychological traits. In this video, we'll dive into 7 psychological traits that explain why people with limited friendships tend to behave the way they do, and how these traits impact their relationships. Trait 1. Highly self-aware, yet overthinking everything. Do you ever catch yourself replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you said the wrong thing or if people are judging you? This constant overthinking is a key trait of those who have limited friendships. People who are highly self-aware often find themselves trapped in their own minds, analyzing every word, action, or facial expression from interactions long after they've ended. On the surface, being self-aware seems like a positive trait. It allows individuals to understand their emotions, motivations, and actions. However, for those with this trait, it often goes too far. Instead of using self-awareness to grow, it becomes a source of anxiety. They can't let go of the past conversation, dissecting every detail and worrying about how they were perceived, which leads to self-doubt. For example, after a conversation, they might ask themselves, "Did I speak too much? Did I come off as arrogant?" These questions start a mental cycle that can last for hours, leaving them exhausted. This constant self-analysis makes it difficult to relax and truly be present in social situations. They might be so focused on how they are coming across that they miss the natural flow of conversation. It's as if their mind is busy worrying about the next thing to say rather than listening to the person in front of them. This detachment can cause relationships to feel shallow, and people with limited friendships often feel misunderstood because they're unable to engage in the moment. Trait 2. Fear of vulnerability. For many people with limited friendships, one of the most significant barriers to forming deep connections is the fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability means opening up, sharing personal thoughts, feelings, and experiences with others. It requires trust and the willingness to be seen for who you truly are, imperfections, flaws, and all. However, for those who struggle to make or maintain close friendships, this is an extremely difficult thing to do. The fear of vulnerability often stems from past experiences of rejection, betrayal, or judgment. People who have been hurt in the past may develop a deep-seated fear of letting others see the real them. They start to believe that if they show their true selves, they will be judged, criticized, or even abandoned. This fear becomes a protective mechanism, a way to guard themselves from further emotional pain. For these individuals, keeping their emotions and thoughts hidden is often seen as safer than opening up to others. They may keep their conversations superficial, avoiding any topics that might reveal too much about themselves. While they may form acquaintances, they avoid getting close enough to let anyone truly get to know them. It's a defense mechanism designed to protect themselves from getting hurt again, but ironically, it prevents the very connections they crave. This fear of vulnerability can also lead to a constant feeling of isolation. The more someone avoids being vulnerable, the more distant they become from others. Friendships require trust and openness, and without these qualities, it's nearly impossible to form deep and meaningful relationships. Over time, the individual may feel stuck, unable to break free from their own emotional walls. The fear of vulnerability can also manifest as a fear of being misunderstood. People with limited friendships might worry that if they share their true selves, others will misinterpret or dismiss their feelings. This fear makes them retreat further into themselves, only strengthening their isolation. They start to believe that no one will ever understand them, which makes it even harder to open up to others. However, it's important to recognize that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a strength. While it might feel uncomfortable at first, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable with others can lead to deeper, more authentic relationships. Vulnerability fosters connection by showing others that we trust them enough to share our true selves. It also opens the door for others to be vulnerable in return, which can help build mutual understanding and empathy. The process of overcoming the fear of vulnerability is not easy, and it takes time. But by taking small steps to open up, be honest about feelings, and embrace imperfections, individuals can begin to break down the walls they've built around themselves. Building deeper connections is a gradual process, but the rewards of vulnerability, trust, intimacy, and understanding are worth the effort. If you recognize this fear within yourself, remember that vulnerability doesn't mean exposing everything all at once. It's about taking one step at a time, gradually learning to trust and connect with others in a way that feels comfortable. And in doing so, you'll find that the connections you form will be stronger, more meaningful, and far more fulfilling. Trait 3. Unrealistic expectations for others and themselves. One of the significant psychological traits that contribute to limited friendships is the tendency to set unrealistic expectations, both for oneself and for others. People with this trait often hold themselves and the people around them to impossibly high standards. While it's important to have goals and desires, the expectations placed on both themselves and others can lead to disappointment, frustration, and eventually isolation. For individuals who struggle with forming deep friendships, this trait often manifests as perfectionism. They may believe that if they can't do something perfectly or meet their ideal standards, they have failed. The same applies to their relationships. They expect others to behave, think, and act in a way that aligns with their personal ideals. Unfortunately, no one can live up to such lofty expectations consistently, and this can cause strain in relationships. The issue arises when these high standards begin to create an emotional distance between themselves and those around them. For example, a person might expect their friends to always be available when they need them, or they might require the utmost loyalty and understanding in every situation. While these are valid desires in a friendship, when the expectations are unrealistic, it becomes difficult for others to meet them. Over time, this leads to feelings of resentment or guilt on both sides. In addition, those who have unrealistic expectations often feel the need to prove themselves. They might push themselves to achieve more, work harder, or be better than others. This constant drive for perfection can cause burnout and leave little room for relaxation or genuine connection. They may become so focused on their personal success or image that they neglect the importance of building and nurturing friendships. This trait can also prevent them from accepting others for who they are. When their friends don't meet these expectations, they may start to distance themselves, either consciously or unconsciously. They may think, if they were a better friend, they would understand me better, or they should have known what I needed. As a result, the individual becomes more isolated, and their friendships remain shallow or unfulfilling. The key to overcoming this trait lies in adjusting expectations and embracing imperfection. Friendships are not about perfection, but about connection, understanding, and mutual support. By accepting that others won't always meet every expectation, individuals can start to form more authentic relationships. Likewise, letting go of the need to be perfect themselves allows for more room for self-compassion and deeper emotional connections. It's important to recognize that unrealistic expectations are often a defense mechanism, an attempt to feel in control or safe. By learning to accept imperfections in both themselves and others, individuals can begin to build more meaningful and lasting friendships, free from the weight of unattainable standards. Trait 4. Difficulty trusting others. One of the key traits that people with limited friendships often struggle with is difficulty trusting others. Trust is a fundamental element in any relationship, but for individuals who have been hurt in the past, it can be incredibly challenging to open up to others and believe they won't be betrayed. This lack of trust can create a barrier between the person and potential friends, making it difficult for them to form meaningful, lasting relationships. People who find it hard to trust may have experienced betrayal or disappointment in past relationships, whether from friends, family members, or romantic partners. These experiences often leave emotional scars, making them wary of letting anyone get too close. They may worry that others will eventually hurt them or let them down, so they keep their guard up, even with people they care about. This lack of trust can manifest in various ways. Some people might keep their feelings and thoughts to themselves, avoiding vulnerability. Others might constantly question the motives of their friends, unsure of whether their intentions are genuine. This creates a cycle where, despite the desire for connection, the fear of being hurt keeps them isolated. They might even sabotage their own relationships by pushing others away before they have the chance to get too close. Over time, this difficulty in trusting others can make it feel as though they are destined to remain alone. They long for deep, meaningful relationships but struggle to break through the walls they've built. However, it's important to recognize that trust is something that can be built gradually, with patience and self-awareness. By taking small steps to open up and give others the benefit of the doubt, individuals can begin to rebuild their ability to trust and form more authentic, fulfilling connections. Trait 5. Overly independent nature. An overly independent nature is another trait that often defines individuals with limited friendships. While independence is typically seen as a positive characteristic, when taken to the extreme, it can lead to emotional isolation. People with this trait value self-sufficiency and pride themselves on their ability to handle things on their own. However, this intense desire for independence can create a barrier in forming meaningful relationships. At its core, this trait is about avoiding reliance on others, whether it's for emotional support, assistance with tasks, or simply sharing life's burdens. The person may feel that asking for help or depending on others is a sign of weakness or vulnerability. This belief can make them hesitant to seek support, even from close friends or family. As a result, they tend to shoulder everything themselves, which can be overwhelming and exhausting. While independence can lead to personal growth and achievement, it can also foster emotional distance. When a person insists on doing everything alone, it can make others feel unneeded or even rejected. Friends and potential connections may feel like they can't contribute or offer help, which can create feelings of disconnection. Over time, this distance can prevent the person from forming deeper, more supportive relationships. Moreover, those who are overly independent may struggle with teamwork or collaboration, as they are used to solving problems on their own. This can impact both personal and professional relationships, as it's difficult to create lasting bonds when one consistently avoids sharing or engaging with others. To overcome this, individuals need to recognize that true strength often comes from accepting help and leaning on others. Building trust and interdependence can lead to stronger, more fulfilling relationships and a deeper sense of connection with others. Trait 6. A strong desire for alone time. A strong desire for alone time is a common trait among people with limited friendships, especially for those who are introverted or highly introspective. While everyone needs solitude at times to recharge, for individuals with limited friendships, this desire for alone time can often be a barrier to forming meaningful connections. It's not that they dislike others or don't want friendships. Rather, they find peace and comfort in being alone, sometimes to the point where it interferes with their social life. The need for solitude can stem from various sources, such as needing time to process emotions, thinking deeply about life, or simply feeling overwhelmed by social interactions. For some, being alone feels like the only time they can truly relax and recharge. It provides a sense of safety and control that may feel absent in social situations. However, this preference for alone time can make others feel rejected or unimportant. Friends may take the person's withdrawal personally, thinking they are being ignored or pushed away. Over time, the person with the strong desire for solitude may isolate themselves further, not realizing how their need for alone time affects their relationships. This can create a cycle where the individual feels more isolated and misunderstood, while their friends may feel neglected or unsure of where they stand. While solitude is essential for self-reflection and personal growth, it's important for individuals with this trait to find a balance. Striking a balance between alone time and engaging in social connections can help maintain meaningful relationships. By opening up to others and allowing themselves to share moments with friends, individuals can enrich their lives and avoid the trap of isolation. Trait 7. Fear of being judged or misunderstood. One of the most common psychological traits among people with limited friendships is the fear of being judged or misunderstood. This fear is deeply rooted in the need for acceptance and validation, and it often keeps people from opening up or forming close connections with others. Individuals who struggle with this trait tend to overanalyze their interactions, constantly worrying that others will view them in a negative light or fail to understand their intentions. For these individuals, vulnerability feels like a risk. They are terrified that by sharing their true feelings, opinions, or experiences, others will reject or criticize them. The fear of judgment is not just about being disliked, it's about feeling exposed and vulnerable. This fear prevents them from showing their authentic selves, leading them to put up walls and keep people at a distance. They may choose to hide their true thoughts or emotions, opting instead to maintain a more superficial, controlled version of themselves. In doing so, they miss the opportunity to connect on a deeper level with others. This constant worry about being judged also causes a great deal of self-doubt. The person may second-guess everything they say or do, wondering if others are scrutinizing their every move. They may withdraw in social situations, avoiding sharing their thoughts for fear that they won't be understood. This creates a vicious cycle. The more they hide, the more misunderstood they feel, which only intensifies their fear of judgment. This trait can also make it difficult to trust others. The fear of being judged is often linked to a lack of trust that others will accept them for who they are. The person may find it hard to believe that anyone would care enough to understand their true self. As a result, they may push others away or keep their distance, leading to loneliness and isolation. However, it's important to recognize that no one is perfect and everyone has their flaws. The fear of being judged or misunderstood is often exaggerated in the mind of the individual, as people are generally more focused on their own lives than on scrutinizing others. By taking small steps to be more authentic and share more openly, individuals can begin to break down the barriers they've built around themselves. Overcoming this fear requires patience and self-compassion, but it is the key to forming deeper, more meaningful connections with others. The journey to overcoming the fear of judgment starts with self-acceptance. By learning to embrace imperfections and allowing oneself to be vulnerable, individuals can begin to let go of the fear of being misunderstood. As they open up, they create space for others to do the same, fostering stronger, more supportive relationships based on mutual understanding and respect. If any of these traits sound familiar, remember, you're not alone. Many of us struggle with similar challenges, but recognizing them is the first step toward change. Have you experienced any of these traits in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. We're all in this together.